And also India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi is all set to attend the inauguration ceremony of Maldives President-elect Ibrahim Mohamed Solih today. Now, this will be Modi's first visit to Maldives as Prime Minister. Narendra Modi is of course going to be the highest ranking visitor to attend the inauguration, and Maldives is the only SAARC nation which Prime Minister Narendra Modi had not visited during his prime ministership. Now, his visit also signals a thaw in the frosty ties with Maldives, which previously had been governed by Abdullah Yameen, who is considered to be pro-China. Now, the Narendra Modi government has signalled a fresh start to the relationship between the two nations. And in a social media post last week, Prime Minister Narendra Modi had said, and I quote, "I will convey to the new Maldivian government of Mr. Solih the desire of the Indian government to work closely for realization of their developmental priorities, especially in areas of infrastructure, healthcare, connectivity and human resource development." The 56-year-old Solih will be sworn in and will be the 6th president in the country's 5-decade electoral history. All right, now for more on this, we are joined in by our correspondent, our principal diplomatic correspondent, in fact, Siddhant Sibal. Good afternoon to you, Siddhant. Now, this, of course, is a very significant change of guard that has taken place in Maldives, and India's Prime Minister, Narendra Modi, will be at the inauguration ceremony of the newly elected Prime Minister President there.
Well, yes, Saleh, the Indian Prime Minister will be shortly leaving New Delhi for Maldives. He will be shortly arriving at the airport in just 2 minutes, and then he will be wheels up for Maldives. This, of course, is the first visit, as you have already mentioned. And, of course, first visit to Maldives. He hasn't visited Maldives. Maldives is the only SAARC country he hasn't visited since taking over since 2014. Clearly sending out a message, because, remember, relationship between Maldives and New Delhi haven't been very good under Yameen, because he junked pro-India, India first policy and became pro-Beijing. But today his presence sends a message that New Delhi backs the new government in Maldives, fully supports it. And of course, message from New Delhi is also that it's keen on infrastructure and development projects in Maldives, which of course were not taking place under Yameen. Instead, Chinese were building a lot of infrastructure projects. It seemed as if Maldives is becoming Chinese outpost in Indian Ocean, in India's own backyard, something that worried India a lot. Also, Maldives is strategically located in Indian Ocean and on crucial trade lanes which connects Africa to Pacific and of course Indian Ocean. So that was the big worry. The headache is of course gone now. That is why the Indian Prime Minister is going. That's the highest level representative by any country at the oath-taking ceremony, which will take place at 5 p.m. local time at the National Stadium. There are representatives from over 45 countries. Exact number is 46 countries, and 17 foreign dignitaries will be present, including former President of Sri Lanka and also 2 ministers from Sri Lanka. From Pakistan, also Chairman of the Senate, and from SAARC, the Secretary General of SAARC will be present. So clearly, emphasis on making sure that the ties between Maldives and India are reset. Special envoy is also coming from Asian heavyweights like China and Japan to Maldives. But shortly that visit will commence of the Indian Prime Minister. Short, brief message visit, but the message is big. The message is that India backs the new government in Maldives.
All right, Siddhant, do continue to stay on with us. Meanwhile, I'm told that we're also joined in by Mr. Brahmachalani, who is a strategic affairs expert. Thank you very much indeed for joining us on this broadcast on WION. So let me begin by asking you this. Now, with this change of guard in Maldives, with President-elect Mohamed Ibrahim Solih taking over, we see the Indian Prime Minister visiting Maldives for the first time. He's visited pretty much every other SAARC nation except for Maldives, but now he's also going there for this inauguration ceremony. How significant do you think this development is?
It's very significant because he's the only important world leader to be present at the inauguration of Solih as Maldives' new president. And secondly, he couldn't go earlier to the Maldives, mainly because President Yameen became increasingly autocratic. He drove his country firmly into China's orbit, leaving very little space for the Indian Prime Minister to visit the Maldives. So he's seeking to correct his previous inability to visit Maldives by being the only important world leader to be present at Soli's presidential inauguration.
Absolutely, indeed. Do continue to stay on with us, Mr. Chellaney. Meanwhile, on our screens, we've got the live visuals of the Indian Prime Minister boarding the flight to head over to Maldives. So, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi will be in Maldives today and will be attending the inauguration ceremony of the President-elect, Mohammad Ibrahim Solih. And if I can come to you on this, Mr. Chellaney, because, the President-elect Solih there has said that he wants, or at least has indicated that he wants a foreign policy that is India-centric in some ways, making a clear break from his predecessor, Abdullah Yameen. So this is going to be a government in Mali which will put India first.
Hopefully, we can't be sure at the moment because China still has a lot of leverage over the Maldives. Under President Yameen, Maldives went down the slippery road of increasing indebtedness to China.
Right.
Right now, the total Maldivian debt to China totals more than 2 times Maldives' yearly revenues.
Absolutely.
And even if the new president does not undertake any new Chinese finance project, the fact is that the existing projects that are already completed or underway, they will keep accumulating additional debt.
Right.
And therefore, Maldives' debt burden will increase even without any new Chinese finance project. And that will give China quite a bit of leverage over the Maldives.
Absolutely.
And therefore, for the Maldives to balance its foreign policy, India will have to pitch in very strongly. India might even have to provide some debt relief to Maldives so that Maldives can pay back some of the debt to China. India can actually provide a credit line to Maldives that will help Maldives to reduce its debt burden to China and also help India to enter the infrastructure sector in a major way.
That of course is going to be the crux of this issue, the Chinese debt which Maldives has to in fact repay. It's being speculated that at least about $1.5 billion is the Chinese debt which Maldives has been laden with. Now, Siddhant, if I can bring you in on this, the fact of the matter is Maldives, the archipelago, is significant because of its strategic location. Now, with a change of guard in Mali, how is Beijing viewing this development? Because they have now clearly lost an ally, someone who had been leaning on China for every single of their needs in terms of strategic needs, in terms of their defense needs, etc.
Well, rightly said, China will be viewing the development closely. The president of China, Xi Jinping, has sent a special envoy, the Minister of Tourism and Culture, to take part in the ceremony. But remember, yes, in Yameen, China saw an ally because remember, under Yameen, he became pro-China. He hurried through an FTA overnight to the parliament between Beijing and, of course, Mali. And there were a number of infrastructure projects which were taking place, which are still taking place in China. And we spoke to the former president of Maldives, Mr. Nasheed, a few months ago, and he said that China is actually pressurizing the government, Yameen government, so that the 2 helicopters which India had gifted after the tsunami should be taken back, because there was this fear that shows that there is Indian presence, because with two helicopters, 50 personals also come, 50 Indian personals also come, military personnel. So that was a big worry according to Mr. Yameen. But now it's a sigh of relief. It's something that New Delhi, of course, is welcoming, because now New Delhi believes that the anti-India policies which Mr. Yameen had introduced will no longer will be there. Right. And these anti-India policies especially impacted people-to-people contact, because no visas were given to India, including work permits to Indians who wanted to work there.
Absolutely, absolutely indeed. And Mr. Chellaney, if I can bring you in on this, one significant issue that a lot of people would be looking at will be about the extent of Chinese debt that Maldives is already under. $1.5 billion is said to be a conservative estimate of the amount of money that is owed by Maldives to China. Do you think India can actually significantly step in? Because a lot of this Chinese debt has been accrued because of these infrastructure projects which China had in fact been sponsoring in Maldives. Do you think India realistically can actually take the place of China in helping Maldives with its infrastructure needs?
Yes, I can. But before I answer that question, let me give you some little background.
Right.
When in Sri Lanka, President Rajapaksa was voted out by the voters in early 2015, there was much jubilation in India that this would mean the end of the pro-China policy of Sri Lanka.
All right.
But what happened under President Sirisena? He took office, he suspended the Chinese projects, but within months, those same projects resumed, and his government has pursued a foreign policy not very different from the policy pursued by President Rajapaksa.
Absolutely.
Because Sri Lanka found itself in a very major debt trap, a Chinese debt trap. Similarly, in the Maldives, we need to be cautious. We cannot expect the mere change of government in Mali to bring about a fundamental change in Maldivian foreign policy. Unless India is willing to play an important role in the Maldivian economy, it's willing to bail out Maldives in terms of its debt trap to China, only then can India ensure that the new Maldivian foreign policy is balanced and seeks to restore Maldives' historical close ties with India.
You've summed it up beautifully there. Thank you very much indeed, Brahmachalani, and also to Siddhant Sibal for joining us on this broadcast, because this is a very significant change of guard that has taken place in Mali. Yes, Solih is not someone who is indicating to be as pro-China as Abdullah Yameen was, but still India will have to tread this with extreme caution. And Prime Minister Narendra Modi is heading to Mali now, and we'll of course be tracking this story very closely.